Hello everyone. I send you all my heartfelt wishes for good health, peace, and strength in your journey. Life has a cruel way of testing love when we least expect it. My accident came suddenly like a storm with no warning. And in that moment, the world seemed to stop. Not just for me, but for CEO Toan. His reaction stunned everyone. They say love is priceless, but it always comes at a cost. And when I disappeared from his life, everything he had built, his calm, his control, his entire world began to unravel. The sun had already dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the fields, but Tu Diem had not returned. Toan stood motionless in front of the half-prepared dinner table, the aroma of steamed rice and stir-fried meat fading into a cold silence. The kitchen, once warmed by hope and quiet anticipation, now felt eerily still. His phone buzzed in his hand again. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Double quotes. The automated voice cut through the air like a knife. He stared at the screen, fingers trembling. Something's not right. He knew Tu Diem. She would never stay out this long without a word. She had gone into the forest to harvest bamboo shoots, determined to earn a little more money and pay him back. Always thinking of others, always carrying the weight of the world on her fragile shoulders. Earlier that morning, Tu Diem had smiled through her exhaustion. "I need to work harder," she had whispered, mostly to herself. "I have to repay to and maybe, just maybe, find peace in my own heart again." With a woven basket in hand, she disappeared into the dense forest, unaware that every step was leading her toward danger. The thick underbrush, the slippery slopes, it was too much for her already tired body. Somewhere deep between two clusters of wild bamboo, her foot slipped. A sudden scream, a hard fall, then silence. At the same time, back in the city, Toan was wrapping up meetings, brushing off corporate matters with rare impatience. "I'll visit her this afternoon," he told himself. "I'll surprise her, cook for her. She deserves to be cared for." But the moment he stepped into the empty farm and saw her absence, a knot twisted in his chest. Her new little shelter stood quietly beside the stream. The bamboo table, the water jars, the little mat where she used to rest all untouched. Her phone rang without answer. He called again and again. His heart pounded louder with every minute. Something primal, something deeper than logic screamed inside him, "Find her, now." By nightfall, the news broke out. CEO Toan, usually cold, precise, and emotionally distant, abruptly left his company headquarters in the middle of an executive review. He stormed out with no explanation. No one had seen him like this. His assistant tried to catch up. "Sir, what's wrong? Do you need backup?" Toan's voice cracked. "Tu Diem is missing. And if anything happens to her..." He couldn't finish the sentence. His fist clenched. His world, once so controlled and ordered, now spun out of balance because the only person who made it feel like home was gone. The price of love. It wasn't money. It wasn't sacrifice. It was the pain of losing someone who never asked for anything and gave everything. And as Toan tore through the winding paths of the forest, shouting her name into the night, one truth echoed louder than any storm. Without Tu Diem, nothing else mattered. The forest was dark now, too dark for comfort. The sky loomed heavy above the trees, and every rustling leaf made Toan's heart race faster. He stumbled over tangled roots, mud splashing against his pants, branches whipping across his arms. But he didn't care. Tu Diem. He shouted, his voice hoarse, desperate, "Answer me. Where are you?" The only reply was the whisper of the wind. His flashlight flickered weakly as he reached deeper into the forest. Then suddenly a sound, a faint whimper. A broken cry. He froze, his breath caught in his throat. Toan, it was her. He spun around toward the voice and pushed through a thick wall of bamboo. There, under a fallen branch, bruised and barely conscious, Tu Diem lay curled against a tree, her basket spilled beside her, the bamboo shoots scattered like forgotten dreams. Toan, she whispered again, eyes half open. I'm here. He dropped to his knees beside her, checking her pulse, brushing dirt from her face. His voice cracked. It's okay. I've got you. I'm here now. I slipped. I couldn't move. I didn't think anyone would find me, she mumbled weakly. Don't talk, he said firmly, fighting back tears. Save your strength. You're going to be okay, I promise. He lifted her gently into his arms, holding her close like something precious because she was. He called for help, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The ambulance met him at the edge of the forest. Tu Diem was rushed to the nearest hospital. Toan never left her side. He sat by her bed, holding her hand through the night. Monitors beeped steadily, but her silence tore at his heart. I thought I lost you, he whispered, voice low, his head bowed. Tu Diem, if you hadn't cried out, if I had been a minute later. But Tu Diem, even in her fragile state, slowly opened her eyes and whispered, you came. You always come. He blinked back tears, brushing her hair from her forehead. Of course I did, and I always will, no matter where you are, no matter what happens. News of the accident spread quickly. The next morning, headlines read, CEO Toan leaves executive meeting to save woman from forest accident. The love behind the suit, CEO Toan's emotional breakdown after finding Ly Tu Diem. She was just a farmer girl. Now the whole country is rooting for her recovery. In the days that followed, people came to see not the cold, powerful CEO they had once feared, but a man changed. A man who had almost lost the one person who mattered most. Tu Diem slowly recovered, her body weak but her spirit burning brighter than ever. Toan stayed by her side, cooking her meals, reading her stories, and sometimes just sitting silently, holding her hand. And one evening, under the soft light of the hospital window, he looked at her and said quietly, I thought I had everything, but the truth is, I only truly lived the moment you walked into my life. You're not just someone I care for, Tu Diem. You are my heart. She smiled through tears, squeezing his hand. And just like the ... from a forgotten forest trail to the quiet bed of recovery, love unspoken, raw, and true had finally found its voice. Weeks passed. Tu Diem was no longer confined to a hospital bed, but her steps were still cautious, her body still healing. Yet every morning, when the sunlight poured through the hospital curtains, she found Toan asleep in the chair, beside her bed, arms crossed, head leaning back, eyes closed in exhaustion, but peace. You should go rest, she would whisper. I rest best when I'm near you, he always replied. When the doctor finally said she could go home, Toan had everything prepared. But it wasn't the old farm or the company guest house. Instead, he drove her to a quiet, sunlit house nestled at the edge of a peaceful hill, surrounded by trees and flower beds. A small swing swayed on the porch. Inside, the kitchen was already stocked, the sofa soft and inviting, and the bedroom window open to the sound of a small stream. This place, Tu Diem gasped, overwhelmed. Whose is it? Ours, Toan said simply. If you'll stay. She turned to look at him, unsure, her heart caught between fear and longing. Why are you doing all this for me? Toan stepped closer. Because I nearly lost you. And in that moment, I realized what I hadn't dared to admit before. I love you, Tu Diem. I don't care where you came from or what people say. You saved my life and then you gave it meaning. Tears welled in her eyes. I'd never thought I could be loved like that. I was always just someone passing through, someone people wanted to forget. Toan cupped her face gently. Not me, never me. In the following days, news about Tu Diem's accident and Toan's unwavering care for her shook both media and boardrooms alike. Shareholders had questions. Some mocked him for losing focus, but others, touched by his loyalty and sincerity, supported him more than ever. His mother, initially skeptical, visited Tu Diem quietly. After a long, silent look, she sat beside her and said, "You're strong, girl, maybe too strong. But now I see why my son can't forget you. Thank you for not giving up." One late afternoon, just as the sun dipped low and the world turned golden, Toan took Tu Diem out to the garden behind the house. "Close your eyes," he whispered. She obeyed. The breeze brushed gently through her hair. "Okay," he said softly to open them. And there, standing before her, Toan held a small velvet box in his hands. "I know we've been through storms. I know your past still haunts you. But I'm not asking you to be perfect, Tu Diem. I'm just asking you to be mine." He opened the box inside. A simple yet beautiful ring gleamed in the sunlight. "Will you marry me?" Tu Diem's breath caught. Tears fell silently down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, yes, Toan. 1,000 times, yes." That evening, the stars above their little house shined brighter than ever. And for the first time in a long time, Tu Diem didn't feel lost. She felt home. Life lesson from the story of Tu Diem and Toan. The story of Tu Diem and CEO Toan reminds us that love is not defined by wealth, status, or perfect circumstances. It is revealed through action, sacrifice, and unwavering presence in times of hardship. Tu Diem, a woman with a painful past and humble life, found the strength to rebuild herself not by depending on others, but through quiet perseverance. Despite all her struggles, she never lost her kindness, her dignity, or her will to survive.